The form and submit it along with supporting documents to the NIS office nearest you. Avoid crowds and long lines. Get your money when you want it. The National Insurance Scheme, always working for you.
Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM, the number one gospel station in Jamaica. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you are overseas and on the move, US listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you are in the UK, 0330-332-6541, or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also check us out on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live in the main watch today. Judicial discretion versus journalistic rights. In the second watch, no proof of payment, no refund. In our social media question, we ask, what is your thought on the call for an immediate reversal of the decision of a High Court judge to bar the media from the murder trial of a former Member of Parliament, Joylan Silvera? Share your responses in our Facebook or YouTube Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp comments and voice notes to 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your comments later on in the program, but first, as I quote.
All right, good morning. Today's I quote is from Carl Jung, and it says, "We cannot change anything until we accept it."
Interesting. I always struggle with the pronunciation. I think it's Jung.
Jung, okay, all right.
I'm not sure if it's Jung.
All right.
Be that as it may. So, Mr. Dyer, what is it that you would, we cannot change anything until we accept it? Decode. Teacher, professor.
Get back to me in a few.
The main watch will be back after this break.
Sunday, February 4 is World Cancer Day. Close the care gap. This Friday, February 2, Love 101 will be live on location at the Jamaica Cancer Society, and we'll talk up the things, share information that you should know or need to be reminded about this dreaded disease. And here's something extra. If you have never done a pap smear or never done one in 4 years, or if you are unemployed and could do with a little help, you could qualify for a free pap smear. Call 876-301-0346 or 876-579-7097 this Thursday, February 1 to register. That's 876-301-0346 or 579-7097. Women, make your appointment at the Jamaica Cancer Society any weekday or visit your doctor. Get those mammograms or pap smears done. And men, your annual prostate check. It is that important. Listen for the highlights and information givings this Friday, February 2 at 8:30 a.m. right here on Love 101, the family station.
I am a man, yes.
On the next episode of The Mailbox, we will be presenting the Men's Fellowship Tour. This will be your first stop in the series of the church community. You are Center and Mr. Akili Johnson, Secretary of the Dynamic Men in Action, on Wednesday, January 31 at 5:30 p.m. on the family station, Love 101. The Mailbox, Monday.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the main watch, or the first watch. Now, the media and members of the family of former Member of Parliament, Mr. Joylandson Silvera, were barred from recent judicial proceedings involving the allegations of murder of Mr. Silvera's now late wife. For example, the Press Association of Jamaica is protesting and is demanding a reversal of the decision. I will read an extract from the recent press release of the Press Association of Jamaica. In summary, it indicates the following. The Press Association of Jamaica is calling for a repeal of Section 13(1) of the Gun Court Act as being inconsistent with the Constitution of Jamaica. The PAJ, which stands for the Press Association of Jamaica, continues to reiterate the importance in the interest of transparency for reasons to be given in any case where the media is barred from covering court proceedings. The PAJ welcomes a statement from the Jamaican Bar Association reiterating the importance of open justice and the call for a debate on the Gun Court Act. The PAJ respectfully disagrees with the Jamaican Bar Association that the PAJ's call for the principle of open justice to be respected in the Joyland Silvera case was inappropriate. And the press release continues to say quite a number of things, but I'll read for you another extract under the subheading In-Camera Provisions of the Gun Court Act. One interesting sentence, important sentence under that subheading reads as follows. The in-camera provisions of the Gun Court Act, open bracket, provisions that allow for exclusion of the media and the public, close bracket, are not demonstrably justifiable in a free and democratic society and should be repealed. Jamaicans will recall that those words, demonstrably justifiable in a free and democratic society, came about when Jamaica passed the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms in 2011. We have as our guests today to discuss this very interesting topic and very important topic, King's Counsel Peter Champagny, who is also counsel for Mr. Silvera. We also have the president of the Consumers Intervention Jamaica, Mr. Michael Diamond. For transparency, I will add that I'm a former executive member of the Press Association of Jamaica. King's Counsel, good morning. Michael Diamond, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Stokeley. Good morning, Michael. Good morning to your listeners.
You know, I think I will start with you, Mr. Champagny, King's Counsel. Would you like to remind listeners why in the gun court you can have, or you would have, in-camera hearings? Why is it an in-camera court?
Stokeley, before I answer that question, I just wanted to add a caveat, and the caveat is this. As you correctly said, I am counsel representing Mr. Silvera at this point in time. So any reference to be made to the case, I would not participate in, because of course it's sub judice, it's before the court, and it would not be appropriate for me to discuss the details or any aspect of it. But that does not preclude me from speaking about the matters that I think you have invited me here for, in terms of the general principles, in terms of the Gun Court Act. And I'll go straight to it.
Counsel, most definitely.
I'll go straight to it.
Please do.
I'll go straight to it. The Gun Court Act essentially, and Section 13 in particular, the reasons behind it, as I understand it, is to consider the interest of security, or a witness, where the witness is a sensitive one, or where the information is sensitive. So in those circumstances, Section 13, and indeed other portions of legislation, to include the Criminal Justice Administration Act, I think it's Section 23, And of course, Section 16, I think, of the Constitution, Charter of Rights, Fundamental Rights and Freedom, those provisions, also the rationale behind it really is in the interest of public safety, in the interest of witness, a particular witness who is sensitive, and also children. So that is a rationale in broad terms behind the provisions.
Understood. And in terms of even wider than that, do judges generally speaking, just to educate listeners, do judges generally speaking have a discretion as to whether to exclude members of the media or to exclude any relevant person per se from the proceedings?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I note the call by the Press Association of Jamaica. And I think one of the emphasis that is being placed, certainly what you read just now, is
Yeah.
for reasons to be given. It ought to be clear that in none of the provisions, any of the legislation that I just mentioned, there is no mandate or requirement for any judge to give a reason in terms of exclusion. So it may very well be that going forward, and I welcome the debate in terms of open-end justice and seeking to review the provisions that I just mentioned. It may very well be that going forward, what we need is an amendment where reasons are clearly given. Speaking for myself, Stokely, and I think you may find this interesting.
Yeah.
I am of the view that the media, members of the public, should be allowed access to observe proceedings and indeed to record proceedings. But it would have to be subject to instances where there are witnesses, for example, in a sexual offense case where children are involved.
Yes.
Of course, you could appreciate that that would not be something that you'd want the whole public to be there observing, because sometimes when you have a large courtroom with many
Understand.
persons,
Yeah.
witnesses giving evidence and so on become reluctant. So there would have to be some conditionalities, but in by the main and in principle, I support a review of the legislation.
Thank you, King's Counsel. Michael Diamond, any comments?
Yes, definitely. We do understand that journalists would certainly attend court proceedings, especially when there is large public interest. And we know that the media's role is basically to hold people in power to account and to report and explain stories of interest and
Yes.
concern to the public. Now, of course, this will also include, coverage in situations even where there's a minor traffic infringement. As long as it's committed by a celebrity, it can get public interest, especially for trials of murder or political corruption. Now, there's a balance that has to be drawn. And unfortunately, just as Peter was explaining, that even though the legislation doesn't require the judge to give an explanation for exercising their discretion, it leaves a perception of
Michael Diamond? I hope we haven't lost him. Leaves the perception that, and I think we lost him.
are you
Michael
hearing?
Diamond, we're hearing you now. Yes, we're hearing you again. Please proceed.
Yes, it will leave the perception that what are they hiding? This is how the public will view it. The moment that there's a ban on the media reporting on a particular case. So there has to be this balance that's drawn, because we're dealing with a public that is already in distrust for the judiciary, already feeling that there's this distrust when certain cases involve celebrities or anyone from the political realm. So what we have to realize and recognize is that even though a judge is exercising their discretion, this discretion is presumed to be based upon the principles of law, but it cannot be done arbitrarily. And if in fact it is identified as such, then there are recourses that can be taken. Again, it is very overreaching to be able to identify that such is happening, but nevertheless, we have to look at the public interest and the public good. Public interest is not always good. And just as Peter highlighted, there are certain instances where we have to speak about, the protection of individuals and even the community, and having individuals that are irrelevant to a matter, or having the media report on situations that can create, more of a problem, then of course, we have to use our discretion.
Mr. Diamond, you mentioned two things. You mentioned there is already distrust of the judiciary, if I'm quoting it correctly. And you also, well, let's look at that first. To my understanding, well, I think we're already upon a break. So let us revisit that after the break. Listeners, please stay with us. We'll be right back on the Morning Watch.
Get busy with a biz car, biz crew, biz boost. With a giant pump, biz down the candles. When you walk over on your business too.
JN Bank Small Business Loans.
Some loan for you.
Helping you succeed is our business. Tell us your business and let's help you start it, grow it, or boost it. Borrow as low as $10,000 and up to 100 million Jamaican dollars. Enjoy flexible payment terms and affordable rates. Apply now. WhatsApp 876-295-1298. JN Bank. We'll help you find a way.
NIS pensioners, avoid the wait. Get your NIS pension straight to your bank account. It's easy. Simply visit the Ministry of Labor and Social Security's website, mlss.gov.jm, or the nearest NIS office and collect the direct deposit application form. Then complete the form and submit it along with supporting documents to the NIS office nearest you. Avoid crowds and long lines. Get your money when you want it. The National Insurance Scheme, always working for you.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the first watch. We're having a very important conversation with King's Counsel Peter Champagny, as well as Michael Diamond, President of the Consumers Intervention Jamaica. And the topic is judicial discretion versus journalistic rights. Just before the break, Mr. Diamond, I was about to pose a question to you based on what you said just before the break. And in a nutshell, well, let's focus on the matter that you raised about the judiciary. You made a comment about there is already distrust of the judiciary. I have seen where, generally speaking, there seems to be a high level of trust in the judiciary. People, generally speaking, have a very high level of trust in what judges do and say. Any reasons why you, however, said what you said?
Oh, well, I'm in total disagreement with that. What has happened is that, remember, the media reports stories, and oftentimes, if it's something that is very salacious, it will be broadcast a lot more. Unfortunately, there isn't enough time to articulate what the legalese or the jargons that govern particular cases or situations. So you'll have the public interest, which only gets this information from the media rather than directly from the court reporters. And what you have in situations, without specifying any particular case, a judge uses a discretion and offers a particular sentence that seems to be too excessive, and then it's appealed and this individual is given something lesser. Now the public may have accepted the fact that this is a harsh punishment and this is what they're supposed to have, but the principles of laws were violated. And when it is reversed, there is this issue of distrust to say, well, why did they do that? Why wouldn't the judge have known better than to institute such a sentence? No, it's going to be reversed. And there's also the opposite. When the sentence is too lenient and there's an appeal to get it, overturned. So the idea of saying that there's just this complete trust in judiciary, no, that's absolutely not correct. The public often finds what goes on in the courts as, is very mystifying. And rightfully so, because again, the language that's being used, the participants, and especially when it involves individuals of a certain status in our society, it seems to be an unfair treatment as such. And in recent cases where the judge would ban the media, the call is that if this was anyone else or any other circumstance, there wouldn't be such a call to ban the media from the proceedings. So again, we do have this, unfortunately, right now, not just here in Jamaica, but anywhere else where celebrities would be involved and the judge saw it fit to ban the media. It's always a question of what are they hiding, even when it doesn't exist, as something, malicious, but nevertheless, that discretion being exercised without being properly ventilated or articulated to the media or to the public, it does give that impression.
Well, I'm aware that generally speaking, in the gun court, being an in-camera court, persons are excluded except those who are directly involved in the matter, the attorneys, the witnesses, etc. And it doesn't that the in-camera proceedings go on or continue regardless of who the persons are. But Mr.
And
Champagne, Mr. Champagne, so, I'm sorry, Mr. Diamond, you were coming back in.
yeah, man, real quickly, I was going to say that, and that's there's a perfect example because what has happened recently is that the explanation or the press release from the court came after the fact, where individuals already thought like, why did this happen? Because they were not aware of the procedures or the procedures that would have required that restriction. So again, the communication is so important, and having the journalists communicate this information rather than after the fact goes a long way to secure that public confidence.
Mr. Champagne, the King's Counsel, sir, it raises the issue of should there be a media liaison person who is visible and who is always interacting with the public. Not to say that that person would replace the independent journalist, because you need independent journalists. We are now in 2024. This is not 1970 something or 1980 something or 19, even in 1990s. This is 2024, where people want to hear things, know things instantly. Times have changed. Do you think that we're at the point where there needs to be someone from inside the justice system who is interacting with the media and the public almost on the button to advise them on matters that are relevant, so that there is not this cloud of mist? People don't wonder what is being hidden. Mr. Champagne.
First of all, Stokely, I think that exists now. But you mentioned the phrase "on the button," and
Yes.
it may very well be that the public relations officer, which and I'm using that phrase, which is not ascribed to the title, but
Yes.
it is in effect what it is.
Function.
I think
Yes.
the public relations officer, in terms of them interacting with the media, already exists. But the question is whether or not the information should have been given before you had the situation. And I agree with you on that point, in terms of the timing of it. I just wanted to address, if I may, the perception that the judiciary, there is a lot of mistrust. If anyone in Jamaica were to point to me or any one of us, any institution or individual or any office where there isn't any mistrust at all, then I would be dumbfounded. The fact of the matter is that we live in a society now where, because of the flow of social media, because of the flow of information, ironically, you would think that there would be precision in terms of understanding and that there would be clarity, but it seems to me that it is going in the reverse. And I think that the members of the media, respectfully I say, also have a responsibility to report accurately. There are many instances, Stokely, when you yourself as counsel, you are in court, the media is there, and then when you step out of court and you see the media report, you wonder if you're in the same room as the media. So there is also that aspect of it. The judiciary and the justice system is a process. You have decisions that are made and they are challenged. It's not a case where the judge knows that, whatever sentence is going to be imposed is going to be overturned. No, no, that is a principle of law. Judges are not infallible, and that is how law develops. It moves along. So I take issue respectfully with what Michael just said, and I think though that all in all, as I said before, there needs to be a review of the legislation. I think maybe reasons should be clearly defined, that reasons should be given. But may I just say quickly that
Yes.
in the case in point, the Silvera matter, without going into the details of it, in
Yes.
fairness to the learned judge, the judge did indicate that at this instance, there is going to be a barring of the media and family members, not at this time. So it was not something that was indefinite. And I
Yes.
think we also need to appreciate the fact that on a first court appearance, you don't know what is going to be said. You don't know what is going to be to be debated or argued. So I think out of an abundance of caution, that is a position that was taken. And just to add also that the individual really doesn't matter, because let us look at the facts. Look at the Cocoa Peace killing recently. there was an instance in those proceedings where there was a restriction in terms of information. So I don't want it, the view to be left that, oh, because it is this particular individual, that is why this is being applied. No, that's not the case. And I think it's important that when we are having a discussion of this nature, that we pay attention to what the facts are. Because my understanding is that when the matter just got to the public in terms of the attention of it, the question was on what authority does a judge have to this to bar the media. And there was also a comment, I believe, from one person um, that said that all courts are open to the public, and that is not so. There are conditionalities.
Yes,
So
yes.
all that I'm asking is that we be slaves to the truth, slave to what exists. I'm not saying that we should accept it. And let that be clear. What I'm saying is that we should have a review of it, but it is what it is now. And finally, Stokely, we know that in certain proceedings, you don't necessarily have to give reasons. If a judge, for example, is going to say that there's a case to answer when a no case submission is made, the law says that you don't have to give any reasons. We may need to look at that as well. But the
Yeah.
fact is, it is what it is now, and we can debate it, and there is, in fact, room for improvement. But I don't want this perception to be given that, the judiciary is this and the judiciary is that, and this is why this is so. We all have a responsibility to report accurately.
Thank you, Mr. Champagny. Just as a little quick, I would say a joke. I know you said slaves to the truth. I prefer another word, but that's a joke. Adherence to the truth.
Yes,
Mr. Champagny,
that's more eloquent.
Sir, Mr. Champagny, I want to ask you to comment on this.
Yes.
The Press Association of Jamaica is asserting the in-camera provisions of the Gun Court Act are not demonstrably justifiable in a free and democratic society,
Yes.
and should be repealed. I know it's getting into some constitutional law here.
Yes.
I don't know
Yes.
if you have any comments you just want to make generally on that.
I don't share that view. I don't share that view because the Constitution itself, I think, is Section 16(1), makes reference, I believe, to in-camera situations. So I don't know that that blanket statement would find fertile ground in terms of me accepting that. But I'm just one person. I think that there are instances, and there must be instances, where there is a provision for matters to be heard privately in camera. I can think of a number of instances, and I just made reference to one. A witness who is young, a witness who is afraid, a witness whose identity, if revealed, will create some security risk. We can
Yeah.
have a gun court matter where it involves the exploitation of massive numbers of ammunition and firearms, and if that is broadcast ahead of time, then it will compromise the investigation. So we can think of instances. I don't agree that that blanket position should obtain by way of any amendments
Well,
or
to be fair to the
or it be
PAG,
repealed.
well, King's Counsel, to be fair to the PAG, I don't know if they intend for it to be a blanket statement, but point taken, King's Counsel, point taken. Mr. Diamond, before we wrap, any comments on that in terms of an assertion of the PAJ? In-camera provisions of the Gun Court Act are not demonstrably justifiable in a free and democratic society. Any thoughts before we wrap today, sir?
Well, I definitely do agree with Peter. And a part of the challenge that we have is that what is in the journalistic benefit doesn't necessarily justify as far as the judiciary is concerned. And that's where the balance comes in. And of course, again, it's always about the protection of individuals and community that these decisions have to be made. So, where we have a situation that transparency can certainly assist with an investigation, we also have to be very mindful that that responsibility cannot just be left to the whim, because when you have an editor that chooses to publish a story regardless of where the chips may fall, we may have a problem of what the repercussions will be after those chips do fall. So we do have a responsibility that we have to look at the broader picture, and we also have to be very individualistic when we deal with cases on a case by case circumstance.
Well, gentlemen, thank you. I think we're just about out of time now. Very interesting conversation. I think the discussion is going to continue. Mr. Champagny, you have even indicated that you think maybe, well, I don't want to misquote you in any way, shape, or form, but in other words, you're giving room to the fact that maybe, or to the idea, I should say, that maybe the legislation or the relevant legislation may need to be reviewed. I hope I've summarized.
You have correctly
Yeah.
stated my position, Stokeley. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Michael. Thank you to your listeners.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Always a pleasure. Looking forward.
Listeners, please stay with us. The Morning Watch. We'll be back in just a moment.
The time by Jam Bank is
7:30 a.m.
every day in a busy world. We have to do so much. Bank with CIBC and get that personal touch. Share your ambitions. Let us help your dreams come true. At CIBC, you're at the heart of all we do. We're on your side. We're listening. We know the way you feel. CIBC, ambitions made real. NIS pensioners, avoid the wait. Get your NIS pension straight to your bank account. It's easy. Simply visit the Ministry of Labor and Social Security's website, mlss.gov.jm, or the nearest NIS office and collect the direct deposit application form. Then complete the form and submit it along with supporting documents to the NIS office nearest you. Avoid crowds and long lines. Get your money when you want it. The National Insurance Scheme, always working for you. They're full of life. You're full of love. They're carefree. You care more. That's why we created Child Protector, a critical illness insurance plan from Sagicor Life. It provides coverage for your child in the event of 15 critical illnesses, hospitalization benefits, life insurance, and investment benefits. So make sure your child can live life to the fullest. Apply for Sagicor Child Protector today.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. Let's take a look now at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. And we turn firstly to the Jamaica Observer. Unemployment dips to record low, 4.2% for October 2023. We have in the Gleaner, alleged car thieves granted bail. Alleged car thieves granted bail. 2 men accused of stealing a motor car were granted bail when they appeared in the St. Catherine Parish Court on Tuesday. We move over to Loop Jamaica News. And what we have here among the various stories is a reference to a story on Uber. Uber expands to Montego Bay. Uber expands to Montego Bay. Those and many other stories in our various news sources. Coming up next, we'll read for some of the feedback from our Facebook and WhatsApp question, which is, what is your thought on the call for an immediate reversal of the decision of a High Court judge to bar the media from the murder trial of former Member of Parliament Joylan Silvera? Well, not necessarily the murder trial, but from the current proceedings. If you haven't done so yet, leave a comment on our Facebook or YouTube Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp comments and voice notes to 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll be right back.
Sunday, February 4 is World Cancer Day. Close the care gap. This Friday, February 2, Love 101 will be live on location at the Jamaica Cancer Society, and we'll talk up the things, share information that you should know or need to be reminded about this dreaded disease. And here's something extra. If you have never done a pap smear or never done one in 4 years, or if you are unemployed and could do with a little help, you could qualify for a free pap smear. Call 876-301-0346 or 876-579-7097 this Thursday, February 1 to register. That's 876-301-0346 or 579-7097. Women, make your appointment at the Jamaica Cancer Society any weekday or visit your doctor. Get those mammograms or pap smears done. And men, your annual prostate check. It is that important. Listen for the highlights and information givings this Friday, February 2 at 8:30 a.m. right here on Love 101, the family station.
Hey everybody, it's time for Small People with Auntie Vashti.
That's right. It's the Small People Show with me, Auntie Vashti, every Monday to Friday at 4 p.m. Listen up, children. This is our time. And every day we want you in on the great things we are doing on the Small People Show. We come to have fun. We come to help you through those rough days. We are educational, inspirational, and the Small People Show with Auntie Vashti is taking over the nation. Every child must know that they are special because God created you special. That's the Small People Show with me, Auntie Vashti. Monday to Friday at 4 p.m. It's on the family station. Love, the inspiration.
And every afternoon, small people bring it out. We cultivate the youth, teaching them the truth. That's what they learn, that's what they live. That's why the
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marsh. Let's join Jukal for a look at how our Facebook and WhatsApp friends answered today's question. What is your thought on the call for an immediate reversal of the decision of a High Court judge to bar the media from the murder trial of former Member of Parliament Joylan Silvera? And I'll quickly add or make a slight correction. It wasn't actually a murder trial, but proceedings in relation to the murder of the wife of Mr. Silvera. And of course, as was pointed out in the first watch, the judge's comments were in relation to the proceedings on that relevant day. It wasn't a blanket decision or a blanket barring of the media per se. Jukal.
All right, so we do have a response here from Edna in Montego Bay. She sent us a voice note. Let's hear what she has to say. Edna, talk to us.
Good morning, Morning Watch. Good morning, Love 101 listeners and staff. My take on the media being banned from the trial is that I don't know for what reason. There must be a reason why it has been done, but it's not looking good. We as citizens would like to know what's going on, and majority of the time is the media that inform us of what's going on. So it doesn't look good from our angle. As your noble guest said, we might be thinking that they're hiding something. We're just assuming. We don't know. We need to know. So I don't see the reason why the media should be banned, but they must know the reason why they done so. That's it.
All right, that one was from Edna, and Miss Ennis, or Sister Ennis, or Mrs. Ennis rather, said, "Donkey said the world on level." That was her response.
Very interesting. From, you said Mrs. Ennis?
Yes, Mrs.
And
Ennis.
of course, Edna. We thank our listeners for those comments. And again, just to make sure, to make it very clear, it wasn't a murder trial. There were proceedings on that relevant first day, and as was pointed out by King's Counsel in the first watch, it wasn't a blanket bar, not a banning. It was not a blanket bar or barring. Thank you, Jacal. Thank you very much. Well, we move right into the second watch, and a $5,000 speeding ticket, it is understood, issued to a motorist by the police sometime in 2021, in about the month of July, is said to or make now cost the government hundreds of millions of dollars in refunds. It is being indicated. Well, some people might be glad to hear this. How will this work? How will it all work? Who benefits and how serious is this, especially for the government? We have as our guest this morning Gavin Goff, attorney at law, and Louis Barton, president of the Jamaica Association of Taxi Owners and Operators, JAT2. Good morning, Mr. Goff. Good morning, Mr. Barton.
Good morning, Stokeley, and good morning to Mr. Barton and your listeners.
Are we hearing you both? Mr. Goff? Gavin
Are
Goff?
you hearing me?
I'm hearing you now, Gavin Goff. Mr. Louis Barton? Well, we'll proceed with you, Mr. Goff, until we have Mr. Barton, until we can hear him. I think he may be on, but for some reason we're not hearing him. Gavin Goff, good morning, sir.
My brother, how are you doing?
I'm well, sir. I'm well. I'm very well. And could you just enlighten us, Mr. Goff, as to what is the genesis?
Okay, I hear you. I see you.
Mr. Barton? Is that you, Mr. Barton? If it is you, welcome, but we are going to start with Mr. Goff until we can hear you a little bit more consistently and clearly. Mr. Goff, can you give us the genesis or tell us the genesis of this entire affair involving this incident in 2021 and the whole matter of the refund today?
Sure. So the matter commenced in 2021 when our client, Mr. Housen, received a speeding ticket. And he insists that he certainly was not speeding, and so he wanted advice as to what the grounds upon which he could challenge his ticket. And we had been doing some research at Mass Fletcher and Gordon concerning the issuance of speeding tickets and the legality of them. And so we presented to him the option that there could be this challenge made to the ticket that he had received, and he agreed that that was an option which he wanted to pursue. So we brought a constitutional claim, and so very shortly after we had filed the action, the government did not oppose the granting of an injunction against the police to stop them from continuing to issue tickets in the amounts that they had been issuing them for. And that happened, I think, in 2021, sometime, I think, around October. And you may recall that almost immediately after that injunction was issued, there was an emergency session of Parliament for them to pass an amendment to the Road Traffic Act to bring the practice in line with the law. And so since then, the situation has been regularized, but we do have a period of 15 years where tickets had been issued based on a ministerial order instead of it being based on what the actual Road Traffic Act said should be the fines for those offenses. And so what has happened now is that the court, in part based on the concession by the government that it had acted without legal authority in collecting these fines, made an order that these amounts be returned to the citizens who paid them.
Well, let's bring in Mr. Barton. Mr. Barton, you are the president of JAT2. How does this square with you? Because a number of your members and members of other similar associations are obviously, well, maybe they're jumping for joy. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, we are happy. We are happy that this decision was made. The process, what we have to concentrate on now is how will the money be refunded? There's some argument that if you don't have the receipt of 15 years ago, then you will not get back your money. And that we have to look into, because is that fair to us? The government have the information as to whether who paid the fine or who didn't pay. So that is another step that we have to take. But in addition to that, you see, one of the things that we in JET2 is looking at is that a number of decisions are made by government. Government make decisions that call it questionable, and then they turn out not to be the right decision. They are not constitutionally correct. Now, we in the transport sector, we are not rich people who can hire a lawyer to fight for us right through to the end, right through to the Supreme Court or to the Privy Council. So I'm saying that probably we need a system in Jamaica where people of an income level that is not that cannot afford justice
Louis Barton,
should
could
be
you
able to.
1 second, because I see we are already upon a break. But don't lose your train of thought, please. Listeners, please stay with us. We'll be right back on the Morning Watch.
Time on Love 101 is now 7:45 a.m.
From generation to generation, Jamaicans have depended on J&M Bank to make the pride and joy of providing a safe place for their families possible. Now, with no processing fees and no down payment mortgage options, you can open the door to your own sweet home, a legacy to hand to your next generation. Visit jmbank.com to get pre-approved today. J&M Bank will help you find a way. When you say Phosphorus, you say electrical. SWA cables, conduits, transformers, and breakers. When you say Phosphorus, you say lighting, chandeliers, and more. When you say Phosphorus, you say LEDs and solar water heaters. Phosphorus is electrical, lighting, solar, and LEDs. Visit us today, Kingston, Mandeville, and Montego Bay. Phosphorus. NIS pensioners, avoid the wait. Get your NIS pension straight to your bank account. It's easy. Simply visit the Ministry of Labour and Social Security's website, mlss.gov.jm, or the nearest NIS office and collect the direct deposit application form. Then complete the form and submit it along with supporting documents to the NIS office nearest you. Avoid crowds and long lines. Get your money when you want it. The National Insurance Scheme, always working for you.
Sunday, February 4 is World Cancer Day. Close the care gap. This Friday, February 2, Love 101 will be live on location at the Jamaica Cancer Society, and we'll talk up the things, share information that you should know or need to be reminded about this dreaded disease. And here's something extra. If you have never done a pap smear or never done one in 4 years, or if you are unemployed and could do with a little help, you could qualify for a free pap smear. Call 876-301-0346 or 876-579-7097 this Thursday, February 1 to register. That's 876-301-0346 or 579-7097. Women, make your appointment at the Jamaica Cancer Society any weekday or visit your doctor. Get those mammograms or pap smears done. And men, your annual prostate check. It is that important. Listen for the highlights and information givings this Friday, February 2 at 8:30 a.m. right here on Love 101, the family station.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the second watch, and we're having a very, 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 very important discussion in the second watch. The topic is no proof of payment, no refund. Our guests are Gavin Goff, attorney at law, and Louis Barton, president of the Jamaica Association of Taxi Owners and Operators. And of course, this matter concerns the recent ruling of the court where the government of Jamaica could find itself liable to pay quite a lot of refunds to persons who had, as it were, issued tickets for quite a number of years that it ought not to have issued. However, as Mr. Louis Barton has indicated, how do you prove that you made the payment, especially if you didn't keep the receipt? Mr. Barton, you are raising a number of concerns, and would you like to finish your thought?
Yeah. I was saying that if we have a system in Jamaica where we can question decisions by government without having to pay an exorbitant amount of money. Because in this case, the person who went through with it, he was able to afford to get a lawyer to go through and challenge it. And I'm trying to point that out because when that law was passed, we, especially in Jatu and Namawada Association, tried to challenge it, but we couldn't raise the funds in order to take it that far. And this is not the first time because that type of thing happened when the government moved the I think it was the same period where they moved the use of the Mandela Highway to one lane only, an exclusive lane for the JUTC. And we tried to challenge that. It didn't work. We couldn't raise the amount of funds. So I'm saying, in order to avoid this type of thing happening or repeatedly happening, we have to change the system in Jamaica where we can challenge court decision to see whether they are unconstitutional without going to paying a lot of money.
Before you come back in, Mr. Goff, I want to bring this to your attention, Mr. Barton, and as well as you, Mr. Goff, and other persons listening. I'm just reminded that there is a website, trafficticketlookup.gov.jm. Ticket lookup, please enter the details to retrieve traffic tickets. All required information can be found on your driver's license. So you'd enter your driver's license number, your date of birth, your original issue date, and the driver's license control number, etc., and retrieve your tickets. I do not know to what extent this could assist. It looks like it could be of help, Mr. Barton.
Well, before let me just indicate that database, I think, only goes back to 2018.
I was just raising that point during the break with someone. How far back does the database go? And I think what you're saying, Mr. Goff, is that the issuance of those tickets would have been much further back.
Right. There is another database or databases before pre-2018.
Yes.
I don't know how far back it goes.
I see.
But what I like to say, if there is information that shows that you did not pay your ticket from 2015 or even before that, shouldn't that be part of a database that can tell you whether you paid the ticket or you didn't pay the ticket?
If I might respond, yes. The part of it though is that the government they do have those records, I believe. We don't know how far back they go, and the government has not yet committed to indicating how far back the records go. But as part of the amnesties which had been done, you may recall that they had already voided tickets issued before 2018. And so there is a question as to whether and how long they would keep records of tickets which they had already voided.
You know, both Mr. Goff and Mr. Barton, I do gather that the website that I had made reference to goes back quite a bit. I'm not sure if it goes further back prior to 2018, but someone is indicating it goes pretty far back, but I'm not sure how far back. But I leave that alone for the time being. More unknown on that. But Mr. Goff,
yes, sir.
How does this entire affair, in terms of the court decision, square with you in that, yes, you did make a reference to the government hasn't made a commitment to do certain things following the court ruling, but in other words, Mr. Barton has indicated that the government would have records. And do you think it's far-fetched? Or why should it be difficult then for the government to, as it were, in respect of the court's rulings and out of respect for the ruling, simply issue the refunds? Any thoughts on that?
Well, a few thoughts. I should mention firstly that we're going back to court at the end of April
Yes.
to have the court consider the mechanism by which the refunds will be executed. So the court isn't finished with this matter as yet, and that matter of how it's going to be done is really where the focus is right now. But the government in during the course of the trial, they did make reference to some practical challenges they have and have had with the data. The database is changing from one to another. Apparently, there was some change in the codes as well, the offense codes, and so matching back the data is a difficult exercise. And I think they should have started it from 2.5 years ago when the matter was filed. But you know that very often that is not the level of initiative which is taken in these matters. But
you could have issues too. Some persons may have died.
Some persons may have died, and some persons aren't interested in getting a refund.
Yeah.
So, in order to do an automatic, I don't think an automatic refund is in anybody's best interest. And I don't know that there is any mechanism in place yet. There isn't unlike the income tax or your NHT, where there's an account which has debits and credits. We don't have an account system for traffic tickets. So there's there's no space that money could actually be credited to, or any account money could be credited to. So there would need to be some discussion as to the best way to do it, making sure that people who are not entitled to and people who are not interested in it don't have to be bothered with it.
But then let me raise this with you, Mr. Barton. Aren't a lot of taxi operators accustomed to keeping copies of their tickets, or keeping their receipts, rather, having paid? I don't know. I'm just asking, sir.
Yeah, a number of operators keep their tickets, but I think probably the majority of those, as long as you pay your ticket, I remember some of our members in a meeting tell us that they keep the receipt for 3 years. After that, they throw it out, and that's a recent thing. Since they start to do something, amnesty and all of that, then operators start to keep tickets. But prior to 5 years ago, they don't keep a ticket. They don't have a ticket.
I think the Jamaicans are in the habit of not keeping their receipts. They throw receipts away.
They throw the receipt.
Sometimes they don't even ask for a receipt. They just walk away having made a payment.
Exactly. But now we're encouraging our members to do that. But another problem, well, not a problem, but one of the things that are going to happen, at least with some of our members, is that the owners are not the drivers are not the person who usually get a ticket. It is the owner's ticket. So the owners pay the ticket. Now, the ticket the owners pay the ticket for the drivers, like a bus driver. The owners will pay the ticket for them. So that if there's any refund, it will be given to the driver.
The driver, not the owner.
Not the owner. So we don't know how that will work between the drivers who are not with the present owners. It will be a lot of conflict, a lot of work to be done.
The owner may not have kept a record of all the drivers they've had over a period.
Most of the owners, most of the organized owners, those who have more than 2 buses or more than 1 bus, they will keep their tickets. But for how long, we're not quite sure.
Mr. Goff, in the few seconds we have left, where does that leave us? Because you did indicate that you're going to return into court in terms of looking at the mechanism in terms of refund. But where does this generally leave us now, in your view?
I think that there's obviously not going to be a case where every ticket is going to be refunded. But again, it's a partial refund. It's a refund of the excess. It's not a refund of the entire ticket amount. I should make that clear.
Yes.
But where it leaves us, I think, is that hopefully most persons only have a few tickets which they need to be refunded. Yes, there are some persons, and I think members of Mr. Barton's group, who may have dozens, if not hundreds, of tickets which would be impacted by this. I think we should not lose sight of the fact that the ticketing regime is there for an important reason, not the generation of revenue for the government, but to maintain order and discipline on the roads. And the fact is that even though this refund is coming because of an error made by the government, we would not wish to be sending a message to anyone that it's a free for all now on the roads, and that essentially they are now motivated to disregard either the tickets which are being issued now, which are not affected by this judgment, or generally disregard the rules of the road and the laws that are there for everyone.
Excellent way on which to end, Mr. Goff and Mr. Barton. Please pay attention to the rules of the to the rules of the road. Do not ignore the rules of the road. I want to thank you, Mr. Goff and Mr. Barton, for being with us in this second watch. Very interesting conversation, very important conversation. Thank you, gentlemen. And thank you, listeners, for being with us. Join us again tomorrow as we look at other topical and controversial issues. Visit the Love 1 FM YouTube channel and Facebook page for this and all other Love 1 FM programs. Listen to the Morning Watch on our Love 101 app. Download it today and stay connected to the family station, Love 101 FM, the #1 gospel station in Jamaica. This has been the Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and to our guests. I am Stokeley Marsh, and handing back to Love in the Morning with Jakal.
Time on Love 101 is now 8 a.m. and a half, and we want to thank the Ministry of Labor and Social Security for sponsoring the Morning Watch today. Since it's now 8 a.m., you know what time it is. It's time for Forward in Faith.